Welcome everybody. Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome. My name is Jocelyn Panetta-Dansky.
Hi everyone, I'm Jan Williams.
And we are here to bring you the podcast Being Unstoppable and Sovereign. So we're grateful to have you here. It's a bit of an impromptu setting and time frame because my mother had gone into hospital this week, so we had to sort of set back the time. But we're grateful to have you here, and we're looking forward to bringing you a wonderful topic today for week 2 of our podcast. Yay! So feel free to add any comments down below. I've got my little trusty device here watching just in case you want to ask us anything as we go through this topic. Like and share if it's something of value that you feel other people would get something out of it and it would add value to their lives. Feel free to share as well and connect with us. Follow us, we'll follow you back. If you want to connect with Jan and the beautiful work that she's doing, feel free to do that. And also myself, I have courses coming up. This podcast isn't really about that. It's just about bringing you free information and sharing ourselves and our lives and the things that are close to our heart at this time in our lives, and also as it's represented out in the world as well. So we
just sort of some learning, some lessons, and hopefully some wisdom.
Hopefully. That's the goal. That's the intention. Yeah. So do you want to let them know what our...
Sure. So today's topic, we thought we'd start speaking into boundaries. Setting them, having them, enforcing them, embodying them.
Yes.
All the things to do with boundaries.
Yeah. Let us know if you can hear us and if you are able to hear us as well, because we want to make sure that you can hear us clearly. And so let's get into it. Boundaries.
For me, boundaries has been a big thing, not just physical boundaries that sometimes you need to have, sometimes you might need space from someone to sort of, whether you're going through something with them and like you just need that physical buffer to kind of go, okay, I just need to regroup and, like contain myself or what have you. But then also it's, in the work we do, it's also energetic boundaries and becoming discerning of people that might be taking your energy versus, but not necessarily reciprocating that when you need, them, all of those.
Yeah, awesome. I love this topic.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting one, and also a key one that probably when you're little, when you're growing up, you are born into a family that you just take on the programming and conditioning automatically from that family, and also the traits and some of the characteristics and what's acceptable, unacceptable. And as you grow up that way, but what happens is you start to grow into yourself and become more sovereign and start to learn and understand what you want, question. And also learn and understand what you want. There is a time frame where those things are questioned, challenged, potentially rebelled against, depending on your makeup and whether you were for or against the type of upbringing. That's another story. And then that's when we learn about our boundaries, what's important to us, and what is acceptable or unacceptable. I think for me personally, growing up in a Māori family, very much around whakawhanaungatanga all the time. That's your wharetapa whā model indicates that one of the 4 main areas in hauora and health for individuals is taha whānau. And it's true, because it takes a village to raise a family or a baby. There's not just the parents, but the grandparents can play a huge role in terms of supporting the parents and helping guide and assist them, especially in the day and age that we're living in. But then for me, I don't know about you, Jen, but for me, I didn't unlearn, or I didn't realise I needed to unlearn a lot of those family systems that were acceptable, but were misaligned with what I wanted in my life and what I wanted to have, what I wanted to achieve in life. And in order to, I guess, do me, because you reach a point where you just got to do yourself, otherwise you're living your life for other people. I had to cut that cord, so to speak. And it sounds quite abrupt, but it was either me or the family system. And although I love my family very much, I decided to move to Australia when Celeste was about 16, 17 months old. And I was in my 20s, so I was 27. It was 27, and I had to start to stand on my own waka, so to speak. And that's when this whole topic of boundaries for me started to take place. The seed was planted. I moved over here. My family didn't really want me to. My granddad, he wanted to keep my daughter, and he knew once I stayed here, I probably would never go back, which is right. She's 16 now, and over those 16 years, before I got on that plane, I'd already started the boundaries. I didn't want a traditional, what I was taught. I had totally different upbringing for my daughter than what I had. One that was very stable in terms of, we lived in 2 houses my whole childhood. And with my daughter, we've moved every 2 years. So, I was always not a bit of a visitor. So he's like the king of the show. And so I entered into this topic of boundaries back then, but I didn't know the word for it. But what I did know is what I wanted. And then the expectations of other people in my family system. And then what's working for me, what's not. And this guy, seriously.
He's so handsome.
Yeah, he's the star of the show. Sorry, this is Kingston's podcast. And we just are assisting him. Yes, wanted to start the conversation with Puriroa.
I think that's like our family is sort of like our initial blueprint that we're born into and we take on, because we're just that, blank slate in a lot of ways. And it also, it just sets the tone. I know for me, the most recent sort of boundaries I've had to set have been living with my parents. My teenagers and I are currently living with my parents, and just that, and working from home as well for the family business, and having to say sort of to both of my parents and my son, just because you can see me doesn't mean I'm actually available to do what you want me to do right now.
That. Because you
can see me, like physically see me does not mean I'm there waiting, for a job, or Mum, can you, Jan, can you? It's like, I can, but not right now. And there was some resistance initially, but you're sitting right there. What do you mean you can't do what I want you to do right now? It's like, I'm actually busy. I've just come out to get a drink or a file or something or what have you. Yeah. So that's been a little bit of adjustment all around, of like, sort of like, but like a voice message recording.
I'm invisible.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
He just loves Jen. Come on.
Wow, what's not to love?
Exactly. Yeah, awesome. I love that. I love that term. No.
I mean, I know when I was busy I've been a solo parent the entirety of my son's life. And every now and again when he was older, sometimes I would sort of sit and be like, Mom, yeah, in the middle of cooking dinner or whatever task I'm doing, I'd go, I'm sorry, Mum's not available right now. Please leave a message. You know? So it's kind of the equivalent of that with the boundaries of like,
Yeah.
I know you can see me, you're looking at me, and it looks like I can stop what I'm doing, because that's really what it is, them wanting to stop what I'm doing, or not realizing I'm in the middle of something, and but you look like you could do what I need you to right now. Just that adjustment all around, and at the same time adjusting from moving from my own place into their place, having much less of our own personal space than we have been accustomed to. So it's been a big adjustment all around, and for them too, because we've been on different schedules, and especially with my son working in construction, we're up at like 4:30 a lot of the mornings, and it's just Dad works nights some of the half the week, so it's been a big learning curve for us all.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then at the same time, really important, I know for me, in terms of filling my cup and maintaining my energetic boundaries, is that I have to go and take myself away, or I have to shut the door and sort of be reinforce the physical boundary, just so I can have that little bit of time to go, okay, for myself. Otherwise, it's just too easy to sort of become on edge and resentful, because you feel like you're getting pulled in so many different ways, which is the whole point of having boundaries in the first place.
Well, we would know. Definitely. Yeah, awesome. I love what you share. I definitely, it's been a journey for myself as well. I think there's some emotions that are around that. So if I could unpack that on my side, and then you share with your end, in terms of really trusting myself, and because as I guess the term is empath, but I don't like labels or terms, but you would understand that title or label. I was very highly sensitive to what was going around with family, and I'd pick up on and transmute that through my body. My body was like a negative emotion, negative energy guzzler. And then I would feel, really, as a little child, I had quite a few symptomologies, and I didn't know that it was random. It would just come up from nowhere. I had an asthma attack, and then I was asthmatic, and then all of a sudden I don't have asthma. So they would come and go, but they were a part of what I found out up in my 30s, my way of dealing with outside, what was outside of myself, how that impacted me internally. So when it comes to the awareness of that, and the acknowledgement of, I have to be really, really careful, who I let in, who I'm around, and who I allow in this space. Not just my energetic space, but my mental space, my emotional space, because it impacts everything. Impacts the way in which I can create, impacts me spiritually, whether I'm high or low in vibrational frequency, impacts my ability to expand or contract. Also impacts me as a parent with my daughter, and also the boys, assisted and helped raise my sister-in-law, her two sons, which are my brother's sons. And so just had his 28th, the first one, the eldest, his 28th birthday yesterday. And it was quite a profound moment for me, because at such a young age, I felt this deep responsibility to them. And it impacted the way in which I like the things that were priority to me, the way my life kind of went in the past 28 years. And I guess on reflection, having a boundary around how I would make decisions back then would have been, I guess, so much more beneficial to my energetic hygiene, to my emotional hygiene, to my even spiritual hygiene and mental hygiene. And that impacted my money, my career choices, just always wanting to help people as a nurse, and also what I believed I could accomplish, what I believed was my pathway, my blueprint in terms of my life plan, my life's purpose, my life conditions. And so it's been really, it's so much bigger than just a sacred yes or a sacred no. And sometimes had I had said no more than I said yes, it would have been a totally different experience. I would have had totally different decisions to make, choices to make, and a totally different life path. But I know that now, right, at 42. I learned at 42. Yeah, so what's been the
Yeah, I resonate with a lot of that, because I think also, especially with our families, there's usually a lot of obligation tied up, and it's not even, and a lot of sometimes unsaid expectation to do certain things. It's just like, that that's what, someone wants you to do X, Y, or Z for them, and if and that empathic side definitely doesn't, until you sort of get a handle on that and know how to manage it, it definitely has a big impact.
When you're little, you have no idea.
I'm in sort of like hindsight and looking back on different childhood experiences, which were definitely me picking up on other people's feelings and just not knowing how to sort of process them, but always I guess just kind of being lucky at that point that I did spend quite a lot of time at the beach and nature, and that I didn't know it, but that was helping me, and it's still my ultimate happy place, going to Mother Ocean, so all of that, all of what you've spoken to, and it definitely could have been a different outcome had I used the word no more in some ways. And then that also kind of leads into, there's that aspect of consent too, isn't it?
Always.
The aspect of consent, the aspect of being sovereign to yourself, but then you're, as a child, you want to please your parents and you want to, I guess it's that sometimes there might be praise that comes with it, but really pretty much every child wants to please their caregivers, their parents, or whatever. To fit in, to receive that love, the attention, all of it. You just don't know any different, really. It's not till you sort of go through some things and go through some things that you go, oh, okay, I possibly could have what that was.
Teaching moment learning. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so if we were to give some principles, like right off the bat, without preparing or anything,
about setting boundaries, or just boundaries in general?
With boundaries, it could be how to set boundaries, like some real tangible things that people could take away from this podcast.
I think first and foremost, just get with the thought, accept that setting boundaries is not you being selfish. Because some people will say to you, if you tell them no say no to their request, but oh, you're being selfish, or you don't care, you've got, whatever.
Yeah.
They cut
It's
it.
actually the greatest compliment anyone could
Like
give.
you actually just need to be firm in yourself and go, hang on, take that moment. Yes, I could say yes and do what they're asking of me, but what is that actually going to do to me? And is it going to cost me something else that they're not aware of that I am? Or is it my time? Is it earning potential in that moment? Is it time with loved ones, friends, whatever? Like there's generally a cost to you saying yes to someone versus, or is it just that you're ending up saying no to yourself when you say yes to them, and it's something that you wanted to do for yourself that you're now not going to be able to do because you said yes to do whatever they want of you.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of like the overarching. It's almost like if you could imagine a yes/no flow chart. Someone has asked you to do this. Yes, no, and what are the branches of you saying yes, and what's the where does the no lead?
Yeah.
And ultimately, does it lead to you being able to look back at that decision and go, okay, no, that feels all right. I mean, we talk a bit about is it a full body yes or is it a full body no? Or when you're speaking into a question or a topic, where where do you feel it?
Yeah.
And
straight to your body.
And when you're about to say yes to something that you don't really want to do, but at the same time it's a bit different from just before we started, sitting in a little bit of discomfort as to sharing this straight to my Facebook page. As opposed to just having it compartmentalized to my to the podcast page or my energy work page, and going, oh, okay, that feels a little uncomfortable, but that just must mean it's right. So it's also learning to trust yourself as to what is you pushing through a boundary that is actually part of your expansion and your growth versus reinforcing a boundary that maintains your energy, maintains your sovereignty, Yeah.
Because sometimes, I love what you share there, sometimes our boundaries keep us in.
Absolutely, walls
keep
instead.
Us, yes,
yeah.
Like the Great Wall of China. It's this is a boundary, but what it really is
in my lifetime,
is an excuse. I had an interesting conversation, which I'm not going to share here because it's to do with another person, and I don't have their permission to share. But it was beautiful because their aspect or their view of me was so very different to mine. I was like, interesting. This is really interesting because I don't see that. And she was very adamant, and that was that part where I had to listen to, because, this is someone I know and trust and know for decades. And who obviously knows me very well and also has intuitive gifts. So I was like, oh, okay, right. And I could see and witness where potentially I put a boundary up in a specific area of my life that may look like a wall and probably was a wall into that conversation. Yeah, so I love how you, just before we came on, I was like, this is awesome because I feel human. I feel human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's all part of the practice, isn't it? And living it, and part of owning our and being able to admit to, and having to be honest, honest with ourselves when we're actually the one that's blocking us. Because a lot of times we can go, oh, it's this situation or it's that person or that circumstance, and sometimes it's actually just the person that's looking at you in the mirror. Yeah,
exactly. Especially when just very, very, and only you would know the answer to that. Only I would know the answer. Only you would know the true answer. Unless it's someone really close to you who's done some work and identify what is a real boundary and what is an excuse to not cross over that boundary because you're scared, or you don't want to get hurt, or you don't want to have the kōrero, the conscious conversation that is going to bring up some stuff that might trigger you and that you don't want to feel. So you just continue with your life suppressing it.
Just keep that wall in.
Stand at boundary.
Yeah. All of that. All of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that. So consent come up through your kōrero. I wanted to touch a bit about that because I had an experience, right? Because as you all know, if you follow me, my mum had a stroke a couple of weeks ago. And it's quite a huge thing for me because I'm like, oh, I'm a nurse. She's a nurse. Coming out of working in that industry for over 20 years, I know the prognosis of a stroke, what it entails, the spectrum of mild to full-blown stroke. And I'm just too busy to be, like, I'm so busy right now. I think I work about 80 hours to 100 hours a week. And I have been for a couple of months to add another thing on my list. And so selfishly, that was a boundary for me. I don't know how I'm going to stretch myself even more unless I'm like a rubber band and snap or something falls away. Something's got to give, right? How I'm going to be able to nurse and care for her. So anyway, luckily she can walk and talk and she's got most of her faculties and she's doing quite well. So I was like, thank you, God. And I said to her, Mum, like I really love you, but you just cannot get sick right now. I don't have the capacity right now to put everything aside just to look after you, and that would sound selfish. That sounds selfish, right? But for me, it's selfish for me not to say that or have that conversation with her, because if I don't and she doesn't take care of her health, it's a disservice to me, and it's also a disservice to my daughter, because she needs me right now, and I need to be, the breadwinner. I need to be doing well with my business. I need to be there for my students. I've got all these responsibilities and hats. I'm a grandmother now. I don't want to compromise any of that for something that can be prevented, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of de-stressing, take the medication, or go for walks, or healthy eating and stuff like that.
So on the face of that sounds like you're being self-like sounds, but do you think that you putting it that way, actually, that your mum heard what you were saying? Do you think she took it as though you were being selfish, or did she actually take it as though, oh, hang on, Jocelyn's actually just saying it in a way to get my attention, so I actually listen to her?
Well, yeah, so on the backdrop of that, for 2 years, I've been pushing her to go to the doctors and get CTs and do all the tests and the blood tests, and just be honest. Honesty is a big thing in terms of being unstoppable and sovereign, and also your boundaries. You've got to be honest with yourself about where her health is.
Yeah,
without pretending.
It's such a
I
big
don't
thing,
know
the old, as opposed to the default of, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. No,
I'm
no,
fine.
Yeah.
I'm used to the dizzy spells and the feeling faint and the having no energy and all the other things
and high blood pressure. No, it's all good. Like it's a family thing, or maybe it's a family thing because someone didn't do the thing that was needed to stop that traveling down the generation. So so that's consent. I was meant to be talking about. Sorry, go back to consent. So anyway, I get this message from this lovely human, beautiful, amazing woman. And she sees my post about Mum, and she decides to send me a recording with some light language. And even my throat is like welling up because it was Palladian light language, and I thought I did not consent. I have to have a drink. I literally, I was so, this is a thing. My boundary is that I don't care who you are. If I give you consent, you can enter my field. But if there is no consent, and I haven't asked you to read for me, to like do your juju, bada bing, bada boom thing for me, whatever your gifts are for me, then I don't want it. So I didn't consent. And so when I heard it, it crossed the boundary. She didn't know it had crossed. I have to turn this off. Is this stuff? It's my I think it's that. So anyway, long story short, I ended up setting that boundary energetically, and I sent audio back. But what I find a lot of in spaces where people are helping people, and what I also have to take responsibility for and be careful of, is because we have all these gifts and certificates or knowledge, and it worked for us, sometimes we can perceive that it's going to work for other people, and also that if it helped us, it will help them. And we can impose upon other people what we believe is right or good for us without it being true for them, or without them wanting to receive or being ready to receive or whatever. Like giving advice when someone's like, I just want to do me, I don't want to change right now, this is my choice. Or vaccination, I don't want to right now, or I do whatever. It can cross a boundary in terms of consent. Consent is a huge thing. And I think my throat is like going berserk because for so long I was told or suppressed. I was told, I wasn't told you don't have a voice, but I wasn't listened to, and I wasn't made to feel like I could speak. So I think that's why that's just gone. Yeah. So Jan's going to take over now. Thank you, Jan.
Yeah. I mean, and that feeds into, I get that. I mean, and from a Reiki perspective, my teacher very much reinforced the idea that for you to, whoever you want to share, the Reiki energy with, you get their consent first. And it's like, yes, you can totally send it without it, but that's not the point. The point is, you're supposed to have, you make a connection with the person that you're having a session with, whether it's in person, distance, whatever, over the phone, however you're doing it, but they have to consent to receive, because, it's not up to us to just, as you say, impose. Even if your intentions are, you think are the best of intentions, and you think that this will help you, it'll make you feel better, or whatever, whatever it is, you still don't have the right to overstep someone else's boundary, consent, etc. It's not up to you to assume that they're going to, want whatever it is you're wanting to give them, even if you have the best of intentions in that, behind that gift. And yes, it can be frustrating sometimes when you can help someone and they're not ready for it, but then at the same token, sometimes someone that has perhaps recently found their voice or recently found the self sovereignty to speak into things. They actually just want to be heard and listened to.
Mm.
And so it's a bit like, don't just jump in with giving advice straight away, because sometimes the person actually just needs to hear, those feelings and speak those words aloud to another person.
Yeah.
And that, and then the rest of it will fall. And if they ask you for, suggestions or advice, sure, then, but, a lot of people are so used to, let's try and fix it, let's try and problem solve, let's, and actually it's like, it's part of holding space for that person, is that you actually just listen to them so that they feel heard, and then you can go from there, as opposed to the bulldozer of, right, let's get moving with this and do that. And,
I love that, and I also love that because it speaks to another part of, I guess, consent. And then in terms of boundaries, having boundaries with your time as well. Like, I feel it's really important that there is, in the space of what you do and what I do, and in the space of healing and helping people, absolutely there's a time to listen and to support and to hold space. But then there also needs to be compensation for that time if it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
And this is what I find. I do find myself personally, people will reach out to me and ask for assistance, advice, or help for free. And I work it may not look like it because I don't have the best Facebook profile, Instagram, but I work my little tush off, and I just don't have time.
You're busy doing all the things. That's why.
Yeah. I'm the CEO of being busy. I think we all are, but there's so much that goes into just even this. Before we came on here, it was like, it took about an hour.
Why don't we add that banner? What about that heading? What font did you use?
What about this? Yeah. What colour?
Yeah.
There's so many things that I just don't have. And this comes down to my boundary. I don't have the time or the energy to hold space for you for free. Because I don't have enough time in the day. And as a healer, as a coach, as a person who works and helps other people with this, I feel like that's an important boundary for people to have to their work.
Yeah, I think that, and it falls into discernment too. I mean, obviously there will be times where as a person that part of your purpose is to be of service. There are times, it doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency as such, but you'll have that feeling that goes, no, okay, yeah, I'm going to make time to have this conversation with you right now because it's important. But then there are other times when you're just this is like the fifth call I've had from you in the past 2 weeks, and what do you want from me now? And I'm actually not going to take it. That sort of thing.
And it's the same recycled issue problem.
Yeah.
I felt like, that's a good one. We brought up in terms of consent. What other avenues, boundaries? When it comes to in here, self-love.
Right. I think that comes under just the one, having them, stating them, and just actually, enforcing them. And as I said at the start, understanding that having boundaries is not selfish, is actually part of self-love, it's part of your self-care, it's part of you doing you. And that's not, to say that you are an ass about it necessarily, but don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Really, if someone's crossing a boundary and because you feel it, you generally, that might take a little bit longer, but you will feel, it's like, someone's, that's kind of crossed a line. And then what do you do with that? And is it sometimes, like especially if it's someone that might be a boss or, that's crossed a boundary, how that you might have to handle that, a bit differently than say, a friend or a family member, has crossed a boundary, because there'll be all the other dynamics in politics in play, and backstories, especially with family and friends, if you feel they've crossed a boundary.
Yes. But I also love authenticity, and this is just me personally. And there's a few people I know who can always admired that in me, in which they can be the same in any space, doesn't matter where they're at work. Or there's one in particular who it doesn't matter where that person is. I won't say. I can't share without. They'll just let off.
Yeah.
Anywhere, let off, and people are like, "Do I just like?" I just like dreaming. Like, who does that? And that person would just continue to talk like nothing ever happened, because for that person, if they want to go, they want to go. If they want to let off, they're going to let off.
Yeah.
And for me, at first, it was like, oh, that's crossing a boundary with my nose. Like, I don't want to be inhaling that. Like, you're serious? And they're not these little, they're like a full blown
trumpet.
Earthquake. And these are at like public events, but I've always, like, for me, it was like, wow. But over time, I admired that, because it gave not only that person to hear, but it challenged everyone around that person and made them think of what is it they're hiding about themselves, not being real about with themselves in a public space, that they could just let it go and be themselves. I gave permission to other people to
a heck of a way to
question their boundaries.
Yeah, sure.
What did it just did?
I guess that's under the unapologetic, authentically himself.
Yeah.
Or at least authentically, unapologetically human.
Yeah. And these would be business people, high up in corporate, and just didn't give a fuck. Literally.
Or did, depending on the...
No, didn't. And if anyone had anything to say, it was just like, very open, what the F you're talking about, or, we'll challenge them as if they are, that's boundary, that's a soldier boundary. About knowing yourself, trusting yourself, loving all of you. And self-care, because you're not with your stomach holding yourself in a seminar, the tension's gone.
Okay.
It's really I love that. I love that. So when it comes to being authentic in all times, all spaces, and all things, with all people, at the end of the day, one thing I learned about this person is everyone has to go to the toilet. Everyone has to relieve themselves. Everyone has
bodily functions.
Everyone is just human, and that's okay too. Hi, Kingston. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. I feel like that's really important in the space where I'm in, and also where you're in, and being able to have and understand what our boundaries are, and not, suppress them or hide from them or minimize them for other people. Yeah. That's part of self-love.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my what's the word? What I would describe as love is being honest with myself and with other people, integrity, and being fully honest enough that even if it hurt someone, even if it hurt someone, even if it probably crossed a boundary with someone, but it needed to be said, the unsaid was said, and then people can do or make up their own opinions or do whatever they need to do. For me, that's love. I would rather know the truth. I would rather be told straight up, straight away, rather than spend years wondering, wishing, hoping, dreaming. Yeah. When really all it took was the simple,
this is how it is.
Yeah, like that for me is soldier. And there's a lot of people that aren't at that place to do that for whatever reason. So everyone has their own journey, but for me, to be in my space, I need that.
Yeah, I think that I can get behind that too. Yeah, I mean, that is honesty and loyalty really are two biggies.
Yeah.
But then not loyalty to the blind loyalty to the point that they're going to try and save the feelings. I mean, not being horrible about it if they know something that is pertinent to your well-being or the situation. There's a lot of different aspects of that, and generally people that love you don't want to hurt you as such, but I think there needs to be more of that level of honesty. It's like, it might hurt the person initially because it's going to be something that they don't want to hear, but long term, it's better to know what the actual, real deal is, so to speak.
The raw and the real.
Yeah, the raw and the real.
Yeah.
And then you totally have the choice as to how you deal with that, as opposed to them actually making the choice for you by trying to thinking that they're saving your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It speaks of, for me, times in relationships where I probably wasn't fully honest with myself, and this is why it's so important, because it shaves off years of heartache and pain, and saves you money, saves you time, saves you grey hairs, saves you headaches. Like, I just want the truth. So I really see how if we could just have a conversation straight up, that would be perfect, rather than just going around the bush, Yeah, for me, that's really important.
And I think that's how we need to express our boundaries, is just by having a raw and real and straight up conversation with whoever we're needing to set that boundary with or reinforce that boundary with. And, those conversations get easier with practice.
Yeah, they do. What's a conversation that you've had to have that you didn't probably want to have? Like, no one goes, yay,
let's have
we're doing boundaries today.
Woo!
I feel so amazing. You usually feel a bit of pain. You feel lots of resistance. You feel like you're going out of your comfort zone. You may question who you are as a person. You may have to have a couple of days before you set a boundary with someone who clearly has crossed it. They may not know that they've crossed a boundary. They may not know that that's your boundary. There's so many nuances to that. But in your experience, have you think of a time where you've had to have a raw, real conversation, kōrero, with someone, kanohi to kanohi, face to face right there, and the process before, during, and then after that you could share?
I've already spoken about the move in with my folks, so I feel like I should come up with another example.
Sorry. I may have put you on the spot, but I just
yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I guess one that is coming to mind is a conversation I had to have with a relative that was staying with me for a period of time, and the period of time sort of kept extending.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily that the extension of time was the problem, it was more the dynamic and the boundaries that were being crossed within my space, within our within the flat, just like whether it was distribution of chores being done or not being done, or in some cases it was the lack of initiative to do something without being asked, and then other times it was I'd been out, I'd come home and the whole place had been sort of moved around and somewhat redecorated in a sense, and just going, what? Like, I mean, I didn't have the phrase on tap then, but it fully would have been I did not consent. Do not consent. This needs to be all returned to how it's supposed to be when I come back. And it wasn't at that time. So that was okay, we're going to take a little chat.
Yeah.
And I can laugh about it now, and we're still talking. We've had different moments and dynamics. There's been some space from either side, and but we've come through it, and we're still actually the person is someone that knows me very well in a lot of aspects, so that if I do need to have a raw and real convo about things that are just too time consuming to bring someone else up to speed on, I know I can still go to that person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that also illustrates, setting the boundaries, having that conversation doesn't need to be the end of the friendship, doesn't need to change the relationship as such. It might change that dynamic and things might be a little bit tense or uncomfortable, but you can still work through that, especially if you're actually being, conscious adults that want to progress.
As long as they are honouring your boundaries.
Yeah, going forward. Yeah. Otherwise, it ends up being a talk to the hand.
Later.
Yeah. I think once someone sort of dishonours your boundaries a couple of times, you then have the choice to either say, well, is there still room for that person in my life, or is it just a matter of you extending those boundaries further away from you, and giving less of you, giving less access to you. I mean, it might not sort of mean that you cut them off completely, but then it also can. It all just kind of depends on the situation and how that person is treating them in return.
It brings me to a point about, with the contact, no contact, especially when in relation to, I guess, our relationships with anyone, family, friends, could even be, a romantic relationship, and you've had to set boundaries and they haven't been adhered to, and then you've obviously extended. But what come up while you were speaking is this word ghosting, which has been quite a common thing in the last couple of years. And it's a term that's used in the dating world. Ghosting would be what's the best example? Someone who ghosts. They become a ghost, like Casper, they're gone.
Someone with an avoidant attachment style?
Perhaps. But sometimes in terms of relationships or abusive relationships, it's a safety mechanism too. It's just
both sides of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like someone who's broken contact or choosing not to contact, but it's actually they realise it's safer for them not to.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other one where someone is actually just avoiding having a conversation with someone because they don't.
Yeah.
And they no longer want to
always
see them or date
spectrum.
them or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, always
Somewhere in the
polarity
pendulum
of it.
swing
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
In terms of ghosting and this whole, I guess in dating apps and in dating sites, and there's a big, huge movement towards, less connection. I'm not going to go down this whole big spiel, please. That will be like another podcast, because I feel my brain going, well, you've just opened up a can of worms. I don't want to do that, so bringing that boundary back. But what I am suggesting is
Boundaries in action, folks. Boundaries in action.
is that with the whole ghosting scenario, and a lot of people tend to, or there's a rise in that, instead of having a conscious conversation, or instead of speaking the truth,
Communication.
and or communicating, there is this term. And I wanted to just touch on a couple of principles with that, because I definitely for me personally, I've had experiences when I have had to partake of the ghosting part, or the aspect of what would be perceived as ghosting, but really multiple times before I even needed to, or felt the need to separate myself from these people. There was multiple chances for us to have a conversation, which never eventuated. And so I wanted to ask what your thoughts on ghosting is in terms of boundaries.
I guess if we're talking on the dating level, and if you've had, contact, whether it's been conversations, with someone else, or you may have even gone on dates with them, and then they all of a sudden stop returning your messages, or not communicating with you. That to me is just, rude. And it's a bit be a grown up and say that you don't want to, have any further involvement. Don't just let the silence or lack of contact speak for you.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. But then the other, other side of that, for when someone's sort of potentially gone, I think this situation, may not be safe for me to continue with, or, whatever the issue is. I think that only you can truly, honestly answer that for yourself, as to whether just breaking off communication, not explaining yourself, is the right thing to be done at that point. And if it's a yes, stand behind that. Or if there's something where you're actually just avoiding what could be an uncomfortable conversation, then perhaps you might want to start looking at, what is under it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think without, the whole, initially, I'd like, from someone that you're trying to, whether it's you want to be friends or looking to have a romance with, it's find out, you put your big boy, big girl pants on and have a conversation. Be a bloody adult. Otherwise,
I have yes, in some aspects, yes. I think for if I went very chunk up-ish and expanded in a general term, when it comes to what we're speaking of, being unstoppable and sovereign, the only real, in my perspective, I guess, Commitment, but it's not the word. That's not the word I'm searching for. Come on, hurry up. What's the word? Loyalty.
Yeah.
Loyalty. That
Are you talking about to yourself, loyalty to yourself and your principles?
Yeah,
and
yeah, in
standards
terms
and
of the whole
boundaries.
ghosting
Yeah.
thing. The
Is that-
only loyalty that I would and do for myself is to myself.
Mm.
I don't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
any
I get that.
loyalty because things change all the time, especially in the last 24 months, 36 months. We've seen like the world go through a massive transition and transformation. People just don't have, and I don't. And so this is personal to me. And share in the comments what you think as well, because it's an important subject or topic. People don't have the time and energy to go through or have conversations with people that they probably weren't the right match for them in the first place, if that makes sense. Because I've had experiences where I'm like, okay, like it's clearly a no from both ends. So I haven't needed to felt the need to have a conversation, even after, a couple of dates here and there.
And I totally get that, and I think it's fine. For me, I just think it's rude if you have had that contact, there has been some kind of, interaction beyond the app or whatever, and then you just actually not, bothered to sort of communicate that you don't want to take it any further,
Yeah,
I like that. That I think is rude, but I think that is different to you going, this is what I want. I'm standing in my power. I don't feel the need to explain myself. That to me is different to the other scenario.
Okay. Yeah, I've done both. And I think it was mutual because there was no, hey, what's going on?
I haven't heard from you for a while.
Calls or, it was very... And my intention is not to hurt anyone. It's just obvious.
Yeah. I think it's kind of ties into expectation too. People, even sort of friends or one friend comes to mind in particular. If I don't respond to her message and with what she thinks is a timely, period, she's like texting me again, goes, everything okay? You haven't responded to my message, and it's like. Yep, I've just been, it's work day, I've been busy, so there's some of that expectation too that I think gets woven into, the communication aspect.
Yes, I feel like it's really important to, when you know yourself and you trust yourself and you back yourself, and you're sovereign to yourself, you know what you want, you know exactly who you're investing your time in, what's negotiable and not negotiable, what's acceptable and not acceptable, and you just govern from that. And there's no...
I think, that reminds me, a friend shared a meme I saw, I think, the other week, something to the effect of, don't explain your philosophy, embody it.
Yeah.
There we go.
That down.
But that's it, isn't it? So to me, that speaks to, as you say, the knowing yourself, the trusting yourself, the backing yourself. I am still an advocate for open communication between people trying to date, though. People that are dating.
I am for loyal to yourself, honour and be kind to people, but
ultimately, it's got to be in alignment with you.
It has to be in alignment with you. It has to feel right with you. It has to not be a trigger based on programming and conditioning. It has to be a balanced, neutral decision. You have to do your work. I mean, that's just obvious these days. And if you don't do your work, then that's your choice and that's okay. But know that there's going to be times when your expectations or other people's expectations of you, I mean, they're not going to align anyway, but that there's a high likelihood you won't understand those triggers and then perpetuate more pain potentially if you project onto other people what's actually your hurt and your pain. Because this comes over and, I have people request, friend request me on Facebook or Instagram, but I know I check them out before. I always check people out and I will discern intuitively, is this yes or a no with my body. And sometimes I have got it wrong and I'll add them and then straight away, boom, into my head. Hey, Jocelyn, I was looking at the profile, that same friends. And it's a tacky sales approach. It's a, that for me, there's no connection. It hits all my red buttons, red flags, run. Get the heck out. And then I'm just like,
boundary,
delete, or even block. I don't have to come,
I absolutely don't need to speak into that. I don't think. I think they kind of get,
Even if they've messaged me, I've messaged back, and then we've had a conversation's been lovely. It could just be, and I'm an advocate for this. If there's one thing that, and I don't say go and delete everyone, but if there's people that step out of your boundaries, or they are, here's an example, a spiritual teacher who can't speak on this. I feel my body's like, what are you doing? Okay, but teaching me without embodying. And so I'm following this advice because at that time I was in this situation where I felt like I just needed a boost, and this was my boost. And come to find out later that there was incongruency in the message because they were doing total opposite of what they were teaching me to do.
Right.
So I had a great relationship with them. They were awesome. Always sent love, but it's a no for me. Block.
Yeah.
I don't need to, that's me personally, go back and say, hey,
one thing you've been doing.
Yeah, I don't
opposite.
I don't feel like, unless they're in my physical space, I'll definitely have a kanaki straight away.
Yeah.
I'll pull up.
Yeah.
You're my car. Where's my case? Right, this is. I do. I will.
Yeah.
I'll pull up.
Yeah.
If they're important to me in a way where I need them to know, or I need to hear them out. Yeah. But,
there's a whole spectrum. I mean, there's not just a.
Yeah. And it depends on the priority of my list. So, people high priority, yes, I pull up. People not my priority,
Yeah.
I can't drive to China. Yeah. I love this conversation. What about self-care? Self-care.
I think it's just all kind of spokes in the same wheel.
Yeah.
Really. Part of the self-care is having the boundaries, is reinforcing them, is speaking into them, and knowing that it's all right to, sort of take time out for yourself and go, hang on, I need a moment, I need to pause, I need a breath, or something like, I really want to have this conversation with you, but I actually need to, can we, have it tomorrow or 2 days? I've got, too much on between now to give the time to it that I want to, however you want to phrase it. I mean, if you have to be sort of a bit nicer about it than just going, look, I really want to, but I can't talk right now, or I can't do this right now, or whatever it is. I just think it's just all the things. Yeah. Really, the self-care, just making sure that you're checking in with yourself.
Yeah, what I noticed when we went to the mountain, for me, self-care is getting out of the office, out of the house to nature.
Yeah.
I felt, even though I
Yeah.
was almost like, I can't breathe, you're like,
The water was cold. Just to
0
explain that.
degrees.
We got in the rock pool by the waterfall.
yeah, and I was like,
Mount
you're like,
Tamborine.
are you okay? I'm like, can't breathe. I can't feel my body. I can't.
But before that, initially Jocelyn was like, just jump in, Jan, it'll be fine.
Go.
So what do? Like an idiot. I just jumped in, and then I noticed turn around and she's like gingerly, slowly lowering herself into the water.
Wow, it's a bit cold. Ooh.
And she's guessing whether or not she's going to fully actually join me or not.
In my mind, I get myself into some situations.
But yeah, no, totally. That's the other aspect. Like to me, self-care isn't just, sometimes it's doing certain things and sometimes it's not doing doing things.
Yeah.
And being okay and knowing what works for you, whether it's being out in nature, going to the beach, getting your nails done or whatever, making time to write in your journal if that's what you do, or create something, it's whatever self-care, whatever those things are that actually just help you just relax and feel fulfilled within yourself. It might be having a coffee with a girlfriend or whatever it is, just, what those things are for yourself.
I call it like energy gainers or energy drainers. What gain?
What
gain
adds
energy,
and what decreases.
and then what drains that.
Yeah.
Because what drains you, you probably need to either avoid or do less of.
Yeah.
Or delegate.
Yeah.
Someone else to do.
Manage anyway. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So I think we hit all the dots. Resistance is important. We have found because we were like, a little bit, and then Jan with her experience with resistance. It's important because once you go through, I wouldn't liken it to jumping out of a plane going skydiving. However, I didn't jump out of the plane twice. I went up twice, and the first time, my daughter started screaming at the top of her lungs, and then I just went into mama bear mode. I grabbed him and I pulled his shirt and said, jump off my daughter. I looked like a crazy, did you do it? That's my daughter. And I remember feeling so guilty because I didn't have the conversation, hey, you're 10. You're about to jump out of a plane. FYI, if we need a code, just tell mum, go like this, and then I'll stop it. I never had that conversation until she started screaming and way.
That's a sign.
And then I was like, I feel like the worst mum. And and so he looked at me like, it's crazy, but I'm still going out the plane with your daughter, with the love of your life. And for me, it was after that, I couldn't jump. Couldn't do it. I was like, no, turn into my daughter. In hindsight, I probably should have, because the plane ride down was so scary. They just go straight down.
Yeah.
The plane, it feels like it's going to blow up, and I'm like, I should go. I think I'm going to die. So I did that twice. I think after the first time, I just lost one day.
The drive to do it.
One day I would do it. Yeah, the drive to do it. But that resistance, just go through it. Okay, go through it. It's part of the process.
Yeah. Discerning, learning to discern what really is a yes and what really is a no.
And learning the first time. Yeah, learning the first time. Is there anything
Beautiful.
to add? Mr. Kingy has
I've got one last thing to add, is that you may or may not have noticed my T-shirt. Oh, which way are we going? It says freedom to the people. A friend of mine has started this with another friend, And I will put the links underneath this video so that you too can purchase. They're also doing caps and some tote bags. So yeah, support small business, and it's
and it says at the back, small businesses.
Oh yes.
What does it say?
See, without me sort of
Support small business. There you go.
there we go.
That's our little plug. So thank you for joining. You're welcome. And apologies for anyone who's like, no, it's important to have these conversations and to share our little lessons that we've learned, because it might help. It helps one person not go through decades together. How many years? I mean, for me it was. You won't get it. But I'm 42, so 4 decades for me. To learn things that you could learn by simply watching or listening to a podcast, and how beneficial is that? That's just so beneficial. We believe,
Yeah.
for you to not have to learn the hard way.
Absolutely. And yeah, make sure to put any questions or comments below. And we'll see you next time.
Hi there. Thank you so much for joining. Take care, everyone. Take care of yourselves. And what would be a motto? Like, we haven't come up with one, but what would be a little jingle?
I don't know. Maybe you can suggest one and we'll go through.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next week for the next one. Bye, everybody. Much love. Bye.